Chris Lawhead here to show you how to put together your saxophone. So, first thing I do is I put on my old saxophone necktie here, and this is the neck strap. Okay? Now while I'm setting up, I usually moisten my reed. So to make any saxophone work, you need a reed. So what I do while I'm setting up is I take my reed out, plop it in my mouth, and start sucking on it. Not really sucking, just getting it moist. Now, I take the body of the saxophone out, and most saxophones have a little guard where the neck goes into the body up here, and here's my little guard. I'll take that out. We always want to make sure the guard's in there when it's not being used, because one little ding, if this gets dinged by anything, and it gets a dent right there, you won't be able to put your neck into the body of the saxophone, and your saxophone will be useless, okay? So I get the body of my saxophone out, and I clip it to my little circular attachment here. And I like the kind of attachment that closes all the way, not just a hook. So I get the clip that closes all the way around it, so I don't have any chance of twisting it in a way where it pops off. Now, next we're going to get out our neck piece. So we're going to turn this knob, this tightening knob, back so we have room to put our neck piece in. Now, this part that's going to activate our octave mechanism, or some people call it the register mechanism, that's going to go on the outside of the post. If you can see, this post is coming up. I'm going to put that on the outside of the post. And that post will line up with the brace of the neck. So the brace of the neck is usually right here, not usually, is always right here, directly under the top, okay, or the opposite side of the top of the neck piece. And we want this to line up exactly with this post. That's how it's designed to work best. Okay? Now, when I have that in place, I simply tighten it up. And I just snug it up. I don't crank it. Now, a lot of you will have this other knob that you're like, what's this thing do? This is actually for marching band music, and they have a little stand that comes out here, and they read marching band charts. So it's a little miniature stand that comes out of this post to right about there. I haven't seen that used in years. If you're in marching band, you know you essentially memorize your music. Not essentially. You memorize your music or you're not in marching band. Okay? So, now I have the body of my saxophone attached to the neck of my saxophone. I'm moistening the reed. I'm blabbering a little bit here, so my reed isn't as wet as I'd like it. So I'm going to put it in my mouth while I grab my mouthpiece. And here's my mouthpiece. Now, all mouthpieces will have this guard around them to protect them. So we take the guard off. Now we're going to take this little metal thingy, we call this the ligature, and the ligature clamps the reed onto the mouthpiece. Ligature, reed, mouthpiece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the flat part of the reed and I'm going to put it on the flat part of the mouthpiece. And I'm going to take the top part of the reed, and you'll see they'll kind of line up. Okay? I'm going to take the top part of the reed, or the thinnest part, and I'm going to match it just at the top of the mouthpiece. Just at the tip. Now, if you want to get really specific, when I press down on the reed, so it touches the tip of the mouthpiece, there's the thinnest black line up top there. So, it's at the tip, but it's barely beneath the tip. I mean, I'm talking a hair. Just barely. Next is what I'll do is I'll take my ligature, take the wide end first, and I'll put it over. I'll be careful not to touch the tip of my reed with my ligature, because if we break a reed, it's done. If you break a reed, just get a new one. It's not worth fighting a broken reed. It's just frustrating. So I slide the ligature on top of the mouthpiece and the reed, and the ligature, this is your standard type of ligature. There's a few types, but this is your standard. And it has this split in the middle where the screws go in and pulls it closer together or further apart. I like to put that little opening in the center of that in the center of my reed. So there's going to be even pressure on each side of the reed. Even pressure. Now what that means is we don't do it like that. Okay? We're not lopsided. We're right in the center. And this one is not designed to be backwards like that. This one is designed to be right on the wood or the reed. And then I just snug it tight. Notice I'm not going, it doesn't have to be super tight. Just snug enough that it's not going to move. Okay? Now again, the flat part of the reed is on the flat part of the mouthpiece. I've slid over the fat end first of the ligature on top of both of them, and I'm ready to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mouthpiece with the reed attached, and I'm going to place it on the cork of my neck. Now, I've got a little red line. I don't know if it's going to show up on this video. Let's see. I've got a little red line, and I've put this mouthpiece on there many, many times so you can tell how far it goes for me to be in tune. Now, I've seen some saxophone players that play in tune. It doesn't matter where they put it doesn't matter how far they place the mouthpiece on the neck. But for me, it kind of does, and most of my students it does. I've seen excellent, world-class saxophonists put it on anywhere, and they can play in tune with it anywhere up and down the cork of the neck piece. But generally speaking, the further it's pulled out, the lower the pitch. The further it's pushed in, the higher the pitch, and that's how you're going to tune your saxophone. That's a whole nother lesson in itself, so don't worry about that. Now, I want to make sure my reed, if I'm holding my saxophone upright like this, my reed is going to be pointing towards the ground, okay, or facing towards the ground. Now, normally, when I put my saxophone together, I wouldn't be talking this much. So right now, my reed is bone dry. I'm shooting this video in Colorado. Colorado is a very dry place. So, like if I was at a gig or something, before I played it, I would just give it a little lick. Just get a little moisture on there. The reed will always work better by being wet. Always work better. Nobody wants to play a dry reed. Okay? And test it out. Don't trust my word for it. Don't take my word for it. Test it. And we'll see what you think. Now, it's working. That's how you put together the saxophone.